Hello everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Hi, hello. Today we are going to be doing my May wrap-up, May reading wrap-up. I am filming this on May 30th, so there is a chance that I somehow squeeze another book onto this list in the next 2 days. We'll see what happens. This month, I don't even know how many books I ended up reading. Let me see. I ended up reading 9 books this month. We had a 5-star, we had a 1.5-star. It was all over the place with ratings and all that good stuff. We predominantly had fantasy, as you can see, all those blues there, and then 1 sci-fi and 1 lit fic. And then we had a range of ratings, as you can see here, all those blues, they pop up all over the place. So it was an interesting reading month for sure. Majority of my reading was done through the library. 1 book was a Kobo ebook, which was through my library, which was great. And then I had 4 regular library books that I took out from my library as physical copies that I no longer have with me. So we're just gonna get started. First up this month, I ended up reading Outlawed by Anna North. This was a book club pick for me and my friends, and this didn't really do it for me. I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. Wasn't quite it. I had issues with the writing. I had issues with the way the story was told. Even after discussing it with my friends, I think I realized though, like, a lot of my opinions were very much just my opinions, and other people did not agree with me. Like, I commented on the writing being kind of bad, and everyone was like, girly, it wasn't bad writing. It was really quite good writing. What are you talking about? And I was like, no, like, it was so telly. It was just blunt, and maybe it was just the writing style that I didn't like, but anyways. This is The Crucible meets True Grit. That's what it's pitched as. I don't think it is that at all. It's a fugitive woman who is blamed for witchcraft and is just a scapegoat. Ends up meeting a gang of queer outlaws and their dangerous mission to change the Wild West. So this going in, I don't really know what I was expecting, but I didn't get what I was expecting either. I was left kind of empty by the end of it. It just didn't do it for me. It didn't hit. It didn't do anything. First couple chapters were, to me, extremely formulaic and felt rather couple drafts in vibes, because it was like, all right, this chapter we are right here doing this right now, and then this chapter we're doing this right here right now. Like, there was no nice through line continuity with the story for me. It was very choppy. And then the turn when we meet the outlaws, the whole story just like shifts, and it doesn't feel natural to me at all. Anyways, it didn't work for me. I was expecting more queerness, more discussion about identity and gender, more something. I don't know what I was expecting, but it just didn't do anything for me. The next 3 was the entire An Age of Darkness trilogy by Katie Rose Poole. This was a trilogy I read on a whim through one weekend. I think it was a long weekend, potentially. There Will Come a Darkness was a reread for me. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. As the Shadow Rises and Into the Dying Light, book 2 and 3, both got 4 stars for me. They were new reads. I didn't actually plan on reading this trilogy in its completion. On my Cawpile spreadsheet, which is the spreadsheet that I use to rate my books, it's from G from Book Roast. You guys know, CAWPILE, Cawpile. It's a rating system. On that, there is also a series tracker that I have been using. I had originally DNF'd this series on that tracker because I just never was interested in going into book 2 and book 3. It's because when I read the first one, it just didn't quite hit. There was something missing. I just wasn't interested in going further in that series. But my friend Julie online, it's one of her faves, and she convinced me. She convinced me to read it because book 1, she says, was the worst of the bunch, and book 2 and 3 are great. You guys can go watch that video. I will tag it in the description for my full thoughts on this series. It's definitely a solid YA fantasy series. Each one of these books, though, does depend on the next one to make the story good and satisfying to me. Like, it doesn't have like nice individual, like each book is a banger kind of a feeling. It has to be read all 1, 2, 3 together for it to really be satisfying and for the story to hit for me. So take that as you will. I don't not recommend this. If you are a fan of YA fantasy, definitely pick this up. I liked this enough, more than most YA fantasy that I have read recently, because you guys know I have fallen out of love with YA fantasy. I just don't enjoy the angst and characterization, and I just don't enjoy them. They don't hit for me. I prefer reads with much more lush, nuanced, slow fantasy epicness. Hence all of the adult fantasy and sci-fi behind me. I just don't enjoy YA books as much anymore. There are individual YA books that do hit, so I will keep dabbling when I hear of one that is very, very beloved. I will keep dabbling. Anyways, yes, the There Will Come a Darkness, or An Age of Darkness trilogy by Katie Rose Poole was good. It hit more along the lines of the YA fantasy that I really enjoy, which falls into the really epic adventure, high fantasy, multi-POV, third-person narration, sweeping stories, which makes sense because that's what I love in adult fantasy too. So those stories are the ones that hit for me when it comes to YA fantasy. It did hit, it was fine. These were fine. 3.5 star, 4 star, 4 star. So like good books, and I do recommend them. I don't even know how to describe the series as a whole. It starts off with 5 different characters, which is too many characters, and there's too many things going on. And it fell into the trap of me really not liking one of the POVs, which I hate when that happens. He gave nothing to the story and did nothing to drag things on past book 1. So anytime we got to his POV, I was just like, no one cares about Hassan. No one cares. So his POV just didn't work for me, but he in the first book is believed to be this prophet, this last prophet that has come back, who will fight back against the Age of Darkness. We also have a pale hand who can kill with a touch, who's trying to take care of her sister and find the cure to like bring her sister fully back from the dead, because her sister is a revenant, which is very cool. We got Anton is a kid who's run away from his family and his past and his abusive home life. We also have another kid, Jude, who is the top paladin guy. I don't think they're called paladins, but a whole cast of characters. It's a whole like end of the world situation where a cast of characters has to kind of come together, and it takes until book 3 for them to actually come together, and the plot lines in book 1 and 2 take a long fucking time to even make any sense to the narrative, which is why I said you need to read all 3 for it to be satisfying, because I don't think there were nice solid arcs in each book. It was overarching. So you need to read the trilogy all at once to get the satisfying story to me. But anyways, I've been rambling about this story forever. That's The Age of Darkness. Next book I picked up was that YA book that is pitched as YA, but I think should be pitched as new adult or adult. And I guess it's not pitched as new adult because that's not a thing in publishing. It should be adult. It should be pitched as an adult urban fantasy, because that's what it felt like to me. And that is The Poisons We Drank by Bethany Baptiste. This was phenomenal. This does not feel YA in any sense of the word, except for the fact that our main character is 18. That's the only reason that this could be considered YA in my head. And it's not because of the themes, because I know the themes in YA books can go very, very, very dark. And this book is extremely dark. Definitely look up your trigger and content warnings. Just warning you now. It is a story about this girl who is a love witcher. In this world, there are witchers and humans. It is in an alternate universe to our world. So in a country divided by humans and witchers, humans are oppressing the shit out of the witchers. It's very tense, very everything is on the edge of something very fiery at this moment. There's riots, there's people going around, part of this iron community who are part of the humans who are going around and just shooting witchers in the name of keeping the world safe or whatever. It's bad. It's a bad situation that they're in. Our main character, Venus, is a love witcher. She, at the beginning of this, is making potions for people. Her power, she's a brewer. She can make love potions specifically for people, and there's a bunch of different kinds of love potions. It's not just a love potion that you think of. It's a potion for familial love or friendship love or unrequited love or self-love. There's a bunch of different kinds of love potions she can make, and at different levels. And at different levels, it just becomes more and more dangerous to herself, because the act of brewing is also an act of intense self-endangerment, I'll say. It's a lot. At the beginning of this, Venus, not really even at the beginning, within 100 pages roughly, as the story is getting started, as things are going along, it's beautiful, it's slow. We're getting the taste of this life. of this life that our characters are living, we are getting the stakes and the horrors of just living these lives that they're living. Then someone shoots Venus's mom, and so that kind of kicks off a mystery aspect of this. In an attempt to find out who has done this, Venus gets caught up with some really high level names who kind of tie her into an oath, and she just keeps getting tugged deeper and deeper and deeper into the underbelly of this city, and it's dangerous and everything is tense, and I could not put this book down. It was fabulous. And the reason why I say that this is not a YA book, it reads more new adult or adult, is because of the way this book is actually constructed. I talk about it in my vlog where I read the Age of Darkness trilogy, where I'm talking about the way that YA books just have a flavor to them when I'm reading them, and I'm trying to I know it's such a fine line when you're talking about YA to adult books, but to me, YA books have such a flavor to them. They're very specifically things that are very internal. We are really dealing with the mindset of our main character, and it's angsty and it's fast-paced, and we are usually dealing with first person. It's actually quite rare when we find a third person YA book nowadays. It's just this very specific flavor that is quite YA. It's written for a younger audience, even though the themes can be quite heavy, quite large, etc., etc. This book and adult books, in my opinion, are written in a way where they are constructed differently. They're not necessarily as snappy as a YA book is. I feel like now, not necessarily all YA books are like this, I should declare that, but I feel like the trend in YA books recently has been this push for snappy books with short chapters with really high adrenaline inducing stories that just never let you go. They make you feel huge things all the time, everywhere. They take you by the throat and don't let you go, right? The more that I think about it, the more that makes sense, because when you look at middle grade, the way you have to write a middle grade book is you have to write it with kids in mind, and kids do not have the attention span, right? You need to hook them immediately and you cannot let them go. And I feel like with the attention span situation that we are going through as a people, being so connected online and having these really quick, I know Vine is dead, but the 6-second videos that created, and then whatever became TikTok after, Musical.ly and then TikTok, and the short form content that we are consuming and everything, the attention span that young adults have now, the teenagers have, I should say, not young adults, teenagers have, is leaking into the trends that we have for what we write and what stories come out. Because now I'm seeing this trend for not only middle grade books being very snappy and very to the point and very high octane and fun, and they don't let kids go, and it's so enjoyable, and they just love it and they gobble it up, right? They're shorter books, they're snappier books. That is the trend for middle grade because you need to keep kids engaged. I'm finding that leaking into young adult now because there's this push for shorter chapters, high octane stories, full of feelings, so full of feelings, and it's just these addictive narratives that are coming out of it. Adult fantasy books have not yet had that. Maybe that's why I like adult fantasy books so much, because they give you time to rest with the characters, to learn their stories, to get every bit of information you need. They are rich in world building. They are just stunning works, which is probably why they're also a lot longer sometimes, right? We have the 400, 500, 600 to 1,000 page long high fantasy books for adults that just lets you sink into the story. And yeah, we still have books that are so high octane and don't let you go. And they are so action-packed and just these intense reading experiences as you go through them. But there's a way that they're constructed, and the flavor of adult books just doesn't have the same flavor as YA books to me. Am I just blabbering nothing right now, or am I making any sense? Please let me know what you guys think about this whole discussion that I've randomly put in the middle of my wrap-up. I'm sorry, but that is what I'm trying to say about The Poisons We Drink, okay? This book feels like an adult fantasy book because it lets us sit in the story. It is a beautifully written story. Everything about it is warm and yet so dark, and it does not let you go. It is churning. It is nothing super high adrenaline inducing, but as I said, I couldn't put this book down. And it was not for the reasons that a lot of like YA books, like I can think of like Leigh Bardugo's books, her YA books specifically, like seeing the difference between her YA books and her adult books is huge because again, it's the way they're written, it's the way they're constructed. It just has a different flavor and it's a different kind of reading experience. That is why this should be marketed as adult. Anyways, I fucking loved this. 4.5 stars. I'm gonna get off my high horse now and talk about the next books that I read. I did not realize I was gonna go off that hard. After that, I ended up picking up The Broken Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin, which is the second book in the Inheritance trilogy. And the first book was 5 stars for me. This one was only 3 stars. It really missed the mark. Oh, it just didn't do it for me. I just didn't care about the story. I was kind of bored the whole way through. There were moments where it was so close to grabbing my attention and sucking me into the pages. I could feel it. I had a very similar experience when I was reading Valerie Valdez's latest sci-fi book, Where Peace is Lost. Again, when I was reading that one, there were moments where I was like, oh, is my attention being caught? And then it just wouldn't quite fully suck me in. That is what this one kind of gave me. So this trilogy is also very interesting though, because it is like an exact opposite to the Age of Darkness trilogy that I talked about, because that trilogy, you need to read every single book to get that full story and to be fully satisfied. This trilogy, every book stands very well on its own, and arguably, so far, I've only read 2 of the books, you can read them out of order, because like the stories, they do tie together, they have the same gods that are mentioned in both, but like you could accidentally read this one first and then could go to the first one and you would be totally fine, because the first one follows Iena, who is declared as an heir to her grandfather's kingdom, and it's this very politically wrought system, and she gets tied in with some gods who are tied to mortals' bodies. It's that whole situation. This follows Ori, who is a blind artisan who has relationships to some of the gods in her city. It's a different city than the original one. She one day stumbles upon the body of a dead godling who is like a child of a god. And she has a very interesting ability with her blindness. She can't see, because she's blind, obviously, but she can only see magic at the beginning of this. Like she can see the manifestation of magic. So when she sees gods and godlings, she can see them because they're glittering, because they're magical beings, essentially. And she can see when mortal people who have magic powers use magic. So they might be invisible to her when they're not using magic, but as soon as they start to use magic, she can see them. She can see the outline of them and that kind of stuff. So it was a really interesting use of blindness as a disability, and also as a, like, when I was reading this, I was like, how is N.K. Jemisin going to do this? Because having a blind main character, you are now unable to use any sight descriptors like you usually would, and which are the most used descriptors in books. She did a very fascinating job with that, and I think it's still a very, very well-written book. The story just didn't work for me. So 3 stars. Oh, I lied. I actually read this one first. My apologies. I read this one before that one. It's fine. I also read These Burning Stars by Bethany Jacobs. This is a sci-fi, very politically leaning cat and mouse inside of a cat and mouse game. It's kind of a sci-fi. To me, this reads more fantasy than it does sci-fi, because it's not as like space operatic as like being on a spaceship would be and having all that high tech and everything. There is that in this, which makes it sci-fi, but it is also very grounded and it just had the flavor of like reading a historical fantasy to me, because our characters are on the hunt and are chasing after these artifacts that are being stolen. It had an interesting mix of like a fantasy flavor with all the politics in that kind of a thing, but also being in a sci-fi world. This one also didn't quite do it for me either, but one of the POVs saved it for me. So up until about the 100-page mark, I was like very just laissez-faire. I was bored. I was like, I don't care about anything that's happening in this book. I don't really know what's going on. And then when we got to kind of page 100, one of the points of views got me. I mean, you give me a sapphic thief and I will be in every time. And one of the POVs in here is a sapphic thief. She is incredible. We love June, okay? In this, we are following 2 separate timelines, a now timeline and a past timeline from about 1664. I am wrong, from 1643 to the now timeline of 1664. That's why. 1664 is the now timeline, and these chapters are in present tense, and then everything from 1640s to the Now timeline are all told in past tense. So I really like the creation and the craft of this book. It is very interesting to me because of that. So we're following in the past timeline the start of an obsession with one of our main characters, Essek, who is this high cleric battle badass woman. She becomes obsessed with this one student at a school that she goes to go see when she's gonna go pick out her novitiates, because she picks out regular novitiates who are basically like people who are her guard people and under her training and that kind of stuff. She picks out the best of the best. She gets called to the school that she used to go to because there is a student that is the best of the best. She basically humiliates the fuck out of this student and tells this student basically like, if you want to be part of my novitiates, you have to prove yourself to do so, but I'm never going to remember your name. You have to impress me. So come to me in 5 years, and the only way you're going to get onto my team is if you impress the fuck out of me. But don't worry about it, because I'm never going to remember you anyways. Like one of those things. But she becomes so obsessed with this student named Six. And then we're following this trajectory of Six starting to do things to get Essek's attention. And it's this cat and mouse chase of the two of them being extremely destructive, and Essek trying to find Six at the same time as Six is just trying to do these things to at first impress Essek, but like that changes. There's another character in here called Chono. Chono is also a cleric, but she's very chill, she's very stoic, she's very like, I'm good. She's also very passive throughout this whole book. But by the end, she then becomes active and chooses to do things, and it changes her character in a really delicious way. So I'm excited to see how that goes into the sequel. Because I have also heard Bethany Jacobs speaking on a podcast, my favorite podcast, you guys know, writing about dragons and shit. I have reached one of their recent episodes, or I guess maybe it wasn't that recent. I think it was around, I think it was January this year, maybe? I'm not sure. Where they talked to Bethany Jacobs, and Trevor Bettis actually interviewed Bethany Jacobs about this book and about her writing in 2 separate episodes. In the first episode, when she's talking to Erin M. Evans and B. Dave and Trevor about sequels, she mentions Chono and like the character arc of Chono, and it actually made it more interesting to me than just having read it. So I love that. Are you guys the same as me? Side note, another thing you can comment down below. Do you guys get more interested in books after you hear authors talk about them or talk about something about it? Because I am that person to the max. Like if I like an author, if I like the person, I am going to be much more interested in picking up that book. It follows that in the past, and then in the present, it follows Essek picking up Chono again from somewhere that Chono ended up becoming a full cleric kind of a thing, and going on another hunt to find this thief that's stealing these relics named June. So it's 2 cat and mouse games. It is a puzzle to put together when you're reading this. And I will say, when I got to the first half of the book, I got about 50% of the way through, I was like, okay, I could put this down and not care at all to pick it back up. That's how I was feeling about it. But because I was so hyped to pick this up, and because I kept wanting to read this, and it was like on my list and I was thinking about it all the time, I needed to finish it for my own brain. And I'm glad that I did, because the second half saved it for me. It really, really did. Second half, phenomenal. Really enjoyed it, and made me even more interested in picking up the sequel. So I gave this 3.5 stars. I would actually be interested to see if my rating would change upon a reread. So when the sequel does come out, I will be rereading this and then reading the sequel as well. And then, my beautiful friends, we read my favorite book of the month and another favorite of the year. Relics of Ruin. Okay. This book is the sequel to Empire of Exiles. It's the second book in the Books of the Usurper trilogy. It just came out, and I'm gonna have to wait for the next one because I don't know when that's coming out, but Orbit. Babe, if you want to hit a girl up with an arc, I would be so excited when those arcs are ready, okay? I know Erin is still working on the book now, but like, please. These books are fucking nominal, okay? 5 stars, amazing. I could give this 20 stars. I could give this 100 stars. This close to rereading it still. I finished it on Saturday, and it's Thursday today that I'm filming this. I am so close to just rereading this, because the book that I read after this was the 1.5 star, and it was so disappointing, to the point where I was just like, do I just turn around and reread Relics of Ruin? Because like, I just need this to be the best. Because if you guys remember, if you watched my April wrap-up, I read Empire of Exiles in April, and I read that one twice in 6 days. This has the same flavor. Same flavor. I want to reread it again. I do. I really do. So the first one, Empire of Exiles, is a pseudo-locked room mystery where we are following Quill, who is an apprentice scribe who comes to the Imperial Archives with a request from a very notable family, the Karatzi family, to withdraw a number of artifacts that are tied to a rebellion that happened 23 years prior with one of the Karatzi family members. A coup for the throne, including a little girl who was claimed to be the grave-spurned princess, the last living heir to the throne, hence the coup. Quill goes to the archives and meets all the people there who are the characters of this book, like the main few characters. We have Amadea, we have Eni, we have Tunuk, everybody. Everybody at the archives who are the best. Then Quill goes to the house that they're staying at, they, meaning a couple of the Paremi, the scribe people, and he witnesses his best friend murder somebody and then kill himself after saying something extremely cryptic. So it launches into this fantasy mystery investigation with like what was actually going on there. There's something called the Venom of Changelings that fucks with people's memory, what's actually going on with these artifacts that are being requested. It's this whole intricate, delicious fantasy mystery that I ate up and have since, as I said, reread it with the point of studying it to then write my own fantasy mystery, which is what Far Horizons Book 1 is going to. This one, the sequel to Empire of Exiles, it continues with the same characters a couple months after the first one, and this one is a skeleton mystery. There are some skeletons that are not in the right places. From the first one, we have our detective man, Richa, and Quill, our two of our characters. They end up stumbling upon a wooden skeleton body of a dead saint, of an Orizandi saint. The Orizandi have saints and they revere their bones. And so because everyone in this world 100 years ago became refugees because of a changeling war and they're all living in Samilla behind a salt wall. When everyone had to move to Samilla, a lot of the Orizandi saints were left behind. So there were wooden skeletons made by sorcerers to be these relics and to stand in place of these skeletons, of these full sets of skeletons. But they did have also the actual bones of some of them. So they have a mix at the Imperial Archives of bone and wooden skeletons in place for these Orizandi saints in this chapel-like thing where people can come and pray. So Quill and Richa, at the beginning of this book, they stumble upon a wooden skeleton of a saint where it shouldn't be, not inside the archives, and they're like, what the fuck? They go back to the archives with these bones, and upon looking at all the catalogs and the records from the institution, 12 years ago, there was a mistake. Somebody lied. Somebody didn't catch that the bodies were swapped out because the bones that are currently standing in place of this saint, which are supposed to be the wooden bones because the real bones are still in Orizandi, are bone. They're an actual bone. They're not wooden bone. Whatever the skeleton is, this is somebody who died 12 years prior. Who died 12 years prior? Who fucked up on the records? It's this whole situation. It's this whole mystery with that kind of a situation, finding out what's really going on there. It has to do with the bone specialists and the one bone specialist who is still at the archives, Tunuk, who is just my sweet baby boy. I love him so much. Also dealing with the fallout from book 1 and like how are these tied together, what's actually going on. It's a whole bunch of other things. I fucking love this so fucking much. These characters feel so real and like friends to me. This world is just exceptional. Everything about these books is perfect. Perfect. Love them. Everybody needs to read them. Go pick up Empire of Exiles. Please, you will be doing yourself a huge favor because these books are so fucking good. Then, the last book that I read so far was an indie book that if you saw my latest vlog, I've already ranted enough about this. This is the 1.5 star. It's a mess. Go watch my vlog if you want to hear all of what this mess is because it's just not good. The best part of this book was reading it with my friend Allie, who I met through TikTok, who has the same feelings as me, and we ended up video calling each other a couple days ago just to be like, what the fuck was this book? But out of respect for the author, I'm not going to go into it again. If you want to know more, go find that vlog. But anyways, friends, those are the 9 books that I read in May. Hello, friends. Editing Jenna popping in. I actually finished a book tonight. It is currently 2 a.m. I forgot to edit this until 1 a.m. I'm speed editing it because guess what? I was reading a book and I couldn't stop reading it. It was Diana Quincy's, oh god, A Night with the Duke? That one? It's her first book in the Clandestine trilogy. It was so good. I haven't read historical romance in years. I haven't read a romance book in a long time. Fuck if it wasn't so fun. It was so fun. It was giving Bridgerton vibes. It was exactly what I wanted. It follows our main character, Leela, who is just such a perfect human being. I love her so deeply. She's so real. She's so steadfast in her beliefs and in her morals and what she wants in life. And she does not stop stepping on the men around her to get what she wants because they just keep trying to hold her back. Girlie's not about that. She's a secret author of like this super big phenomenon travel book that's been going around. At the beginning of this book, she is in an inn with a bunch of people, and she's also Palestinian. She's Palestinian, half white. Her father was a marquis, and she's getting shit on by all these people because she's a woman alone, and she's also a woman of color alone. She pulls a knife on them because of course she does. And then this guy steps in and he's like, whoa, she's with me. This guy is secretly the Duke of Huntington, but he tells her that he's just Elliot Townsend. He doesn't tell her that he's a duke, and he offers her his rooms that he paid for the night so that she can have somewhere safe to be. And then they end up spending the night together. They end up literally 7% into this book. It's the raunchiest, most beautiful sex. And it is so beautifully written. It's so good, so engaging. Immediately there's a big bombastic connection between these two. And they kind of make this deal that they're like, after tonight, we're just not going to talk about it. We're never going to see each other again. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun and amazing. The next day, when Leela goes home, she finally comes home to her stepdaughter and her stepson's estate, essentially. She goes home to visit her stepdaughter because she's just been traveling. She's a widow. Her stepdaughter and stepson are from his previous marriage. And her stepson absolutely hates her, but her stepdaughter fucking loves her. Tori's obsessed with Leela. They're like besties. She comes home to find out that Tori has a potential husband. And they're gonna meet today. And you can guess who that potential husband is. It's the Duke of Huntington, who she just had sex with 3-4 times in a magical night in an inn together. Not even 12 hours before that. So... such kicks off this romance book. It felt like Bridgerton season 2 to me. It just was so fabulous. I highly recommend. And Diana Quincy's a Palestinian author, so even better. Anyways, I haven't run this through Compile. I don't know what I rated it, but I really fucking enjoyed it, and I needed to add it into this video at the end here. So the 10th book of May has been read. Let me know down below your favorite book that you read in May was. I also, and will let you know at the end of this, I have a new giveaway up for an annotated copy of A Little Luck. We have so far raised $190 through this giveaway specifically, and I have a goal of hitting $500 raised, but like, if it keeps going in this trajectory, that might be very easy and I might raise it to 1,000. So we're gonna go raise some money for some families in Gaza. Go check out my TikTok for all the information on entering that. But I am currently in the middle of Blood Over Brighthaven by Emma Wong. I have a big stack of books that I am hoping to get through in June. I've tried to keep them all very queer because it's Pride Month and your girl is bisexual. So I gotta rep the bisexuals and read some queer books, you know? Make sure to like this video and subscribe. I really never say that in any of my videos, but thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in another video very soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.